I'm Ed the Sock. This is Sock Puppet Account, and today, part 3 of my report on the politics of boobs. Today, focusing on those things they make movies about, comic books. Superheroes with sizable sweater meat have been a staple of comic books, which are themselves stapled. And for 75 years, the number of people who have been vocal about this being a problem could hold their meetings in a phone booth.
We're sorry. Your call cannot be completed as dialed.
But in the last number of years, some estimates say that half of all new comic book readers are women. So it follows that these newbies are concerned about the boobies.
Huh?
Among this new generation of nerdettes comes a different attitude towards female characters in comics. To sum it up, big boobs are bad. They demean the character, rob her of her majesty and power, blah, 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 blah. So the issue has become a flashpoint for an internet battle of the banshees, both sides yelling louder than Hulk's fart. So, for those new to comics wondering about how and why boobs have been sized and presented as they are, here's a little history. Women haven't always had big boobs in comics, but they've always been on display. The most enduring example is Wonder Woman, endowed by the gods with great powers, but initially very modest-sized breasts, though with a costume that has always made the most of them. On the flip side were characters like Phantom Lady, a third-string hero who changed costumes in the 40s to stand out on the racks, literally. It was eventually revealed that she wore that costume specifically to distract bad guys. I'm pretty sure it worked. Created by Robert E. Howard, creator of Conan, Red Sonja has always worn as little as her male counterpart, though in battle he clearly has a lot less to worry about. For the most part, though, comic book heroines had noticeable but not unusually sized breasts up until the 1990s, with two notable exceptions. Power Girl, an alternate version of Supergirl, first appeared in 1976. As drawn by artist Wally Wood, the character didn't start out with a remarkable physique, but, believing that his editor wasn't paying any attention to his work, Wood started making Power Girl's breasts bigger every issue, and he was right. The editor said nothing until the sweater puppies became bull mastiffs. At some point, the costume added a window so they could breathe. Marvel's She-Hulk debuted in 1980 and was immediately shredding her shirts, which made complete sense as a female version of the Hulk. In male comic book heroes, big muscles represent power and intimidation. For comic book women, it's large breasts. Both She-Hulk and Power Girl, comics' most out-there characters, have been consistently depicted as aggressive and confident as their male counterparts. Other female heroes with more average-sized breasts were usually written as more demure and less prone to violence. Then came the 1990s, and demure was defunct. A new wave of artists became popular who knew not anatomy. Everything became grossly exaggerated. Men develop muscles on top of muscles in places the human body doesn't have muscles. And a slew of newly created female heroes, as well as some classics, developed boobs the size of a human head. Eventually, some semblance of normalcy returned to both sexes, though She-Hulk and Power Girl kept on trucking, and they could probably use a truck to carry them. Some feminist voices argue that big boobs reduces the ladies to sex objects and robs them of their power. Now, these would be the same people who think male customers exploit female dancers at strip clubs, which means they've clearly never been a man in a strip club. Same with PG and Shulky. Their breasts are empowering. Is there objectification in comics? No shit, Sherlock. Comic books are about hero worship, which is completely objectifying. Superheroes are less characters than archetypes of notions like bravery, power, and being extraordinary. So men have ridiculous muscles, women have large boobs, and, when drawn by Rob Liefeld, men have both. But a sizable number of the women now reading comics would call themselves empowered, and the current position of empowered women is that big-breasted characters are demeaning to women. It's identical to the war on boobs in video games I talked about last week. And in the full frontal assault that these boob shamers have unleashed on pop culture, lots of people minding their own business have been targeted as sexist, patriarchal, misogynist, blah, blah, blah. One of those people is artist Frank Cho. For years, Frank has been drawing beautiful women in very little clothing, drawing on the traditions of the pulp novels that preceded comics. Marvel Comics previewed the cover art by Milo Manara for a Spider-Woman comic that had her in a typical wall-crawling pose, and with typically inaccurate comic book anatomy. The online social justice league went wild. This is more body shaming, because if Spider-Woman had less sizable assets, I doubt the pose would have been a problem. Trying to lighten the mood was Frank Cho. He drew a parody of the cover, which made him the target of the social justice league. A website called the Mary Sue called Cho out for being sexist. In response, Cho drew another cover. And after that backlash, he drew another one. With us now from his studio in Baltimore is public enemy number one, Frank Cho. Hi, Frank.
Hey.
Now, I should warn everybody that the stream is crappy, but bear with us. Frank, in your own words, what got you targeted by the Mary Sue site and leather like-minded critics?
Well, basically, I drew a silly little drawing of a pretty girl, and I posted it on my website to show my fans. And then next thing I know, I'm getting flooded with messages from my fans saying that, you're being attacked on Mary Sue. So that was when I first realized that something was up.
Now, Frank, I know the kind of things that are said behind your back because I usually start it. But what kind of things were being said about you online?
Mary Sue, the article itself was pretty vicious. They're basically saying that I'm a sexist pig, roughly.
And what was your reaction to their reaction?
I was actually amused by the just intensity of the backlash from that small group. So I basically drew another one, telling them, just have a sense of humor and lighten up.
Now, somewhere between drawing number 2 and drawing number 3, you had to know you were being a shit disturber.
Yeah, it's pretty much, hey, come on, this is, at that point, I admit I'm kind of poking the bear, because I kind of want to see how far this train wreck was going,
So the more they yelled, the more you drew out of spite.
No, I never did anything out of spite. I did everything out of fun.
So you were amused by the outrage?
I am very highly amused by the reaction over nothing. And, to me, the whole thing is not about sexism, but for me, it's about censorship. And them being outraged and trying to suppress me is just plain and simple censorship.
Frank, some have called you a pervert, not an artist. In your view, what's the difference between a pervert and an artist?
I guess the income level,
Oh, so at one point you were a pervert.
Pretty much.
I know you're an artist and too much thinking makes you lightheaded, but do you think people are confusing sexy with sexist?
At the Mary Sue website, yes.
Frank, Avengers Age of Ultron is making shitloads of movie money, but when you were the artist on the Avengers comic, you created a different version of Ultron, didn't you?
Yes, and no outrage.
No outcry, imagine that.
No outrage at the time.
Hey, Frank, before we go, just to add some balance, show us your boobs.
My boobs? Oh, yeah, sure. All right.
There you go. There you go.
There you go. You like that?
Very nice. How did that make you feel?
I felt liberating.
Frank, any final messages to the Mary Sue and its followers?
I think they should loosen up, relax. There's going to be a lot more drawings coming your way.
Thanks, Frank.
All right, thanks a lot.
Frank lives in Baltimore, 20 minutes from where the riots were, so at this point, anger that comes from the internet is not so freaking scary. Should also note that Frank donated the money he got for the Spider-Gwen sketch to a local charity that helps abused women. As he put it, people helping people who have real problems, not just people who get outraged on the internet. And yeah, Frank's legal name is Duck. If you haven't done so already, subscribe now to the channel. And since we're published after Monday, I can officially say, see you next Tuesday. I'm Ed the Sock and I'm nobody's puppet, don't you be either. Aloha.